Hi, everyone, and thank you, Renee. My name is Michael Coleman. I also serve on the board of the Mountain Avenue Market. It's also known as the Fort Collins Food Cooperative, the Co-op for short. The Co-op is a member-owned, zero-waste, organic food cooperative here in Fort Collins. It's been around since 1972. If you can imagine starting an organic food movement in 1972, that's pretty amazing. And the co-op has survived all of these years. Now, what was I going to say about, what else was I going to say about the co-op? Geez, shucks, I went blank. This happens, it's live TV. There's nowhere to go really. So we're just gonna make this up as we go along. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. The reason for this show is we really just wanna do this as a benefit to our member owners and to the local community at large while we are all sort of stuck in our homes with nothing much to do. So if you get anything from this program, I hope it's to have a little bit of fun and learn some really simple cooking techniques that you can sort of take home and improve your cooking in your own kitchens. Because really, you have to cook every night or you have to eat out. And cooking at home is so much healthier and so much better for you that I personally would encourage you to do more of it. So what we're gonna try to do, I like to call it, this is cooking for Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? For anybody sitting at home wanting to wonder what they're gonna cook on a Tuesday, this show is going to be for you. And right now, for the first time ever, we would like to welcome you all to the Choice City Cucina. Again, my name is Michael Coleman. I will be your host for this bi-monthly cooking demo. We are coming to you live from my tiny, tiny, tiny Old Town kitchen. We've got my neighbor Tom behind the camera, my wife Jamie on camera too, and my 100-pound dog is not pictured. He's in the bedroom because frankly, there's just not enough space for him. So what we are gonna make for you tonight is a super simple dish. I claim my mother's Italian heritage, particularly when it comes to my cooking style. Everything I do is basically Italian based. A lot of American cooking is, but mine is particularly Italian based. What I absolutely love about it is its simplicity, right? Italian cooking at its heart is rustic country cooking. It's slow food. You think about the hams that they make and the olive oils that they make and the cheeses they make. Everything in Italy is slow, but there's always an emphasis on really fresh ingredients and really good ingredients cooked very simply with nothing fancy at all. That being said, we're gonna make a dish tonight with a bunch of ingredients that aren't in season, right? Because we're Americans and we can do that sort of a thing. So that's what we're gonna do, as well as make a real simple roasted cauliflower dish. I think that one of the greatly underappreciated things in all of cooking are vegetables. Particularly, vegetables have every bit of good flavor that they need right in them. They just need the proper amount of heat, the proper amount of seasoning, and they will provide you with an unbelievable eating experience. Vegetables that are cooked too long, vegetables that aren't seasoned enough, aren't going to taste good. We don't eat enough of them. And so one of the things we're going to try to do on this show is to cook vegetables in a way that is totally tasty. So what we're doing is a vegan tortellini with a blistered tomato sauce and kale, and then roasted cauliflower on the side. So we're going to get started. We're going to get started actually with our cauliflower. And as you can see, I've got my cauliflower cut up here. It's in pretty big pieces, if you can see that. If you think about a head of cauliflower and those big florets down at the bottom, I've basically cut those in half. So I don't know where this other piece is, but you can sort of see that. Cut it in half. The reason I'm cooking this in such big chunks is because I want to cook this at a really high temperature so it gets great caramelization on the outside of it, but still maintains a bit of that al dente crunch in the middle. At least that's the way I like eating my vegetables. You can cook yours however the heck you want to, or when you have your own cooking show. This is mine, and this is how we're going to do it. So really simply, we're going to season this with just olive oil, salt, and pepper. That's going to be it. So here we go, a little bit of olive oil, not too much. You don't want your vegetables absolutely drowning in oil. That'll sort of, you know, it'll make the cook on them a little bit sloppy. It'll make them, 5-second rule. Somebody picked that up. So here we go, toss it back in. Oh, magically it appears. So we're just gonna toss these. Get your hands dirty. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, oh my God. It's just olive oil. Nothing is the matter. You can wipe your hands off. You can clean your towels. It's totally cool. If this was your kitchen, you'd be doing the same thing. So olive oil, salt, properly salt your vegetables. Don't over salt them, just properly salt them. Salt is a flavor enhancer. It makes things taste better. Don't be afraid of it. Just try to not overdo it. And then just a little bit of black pepper. Now I heard a really interesting thing one time, an article that I read that said, when did salt and pepper become a single combination? And it makes sense. If you want something to taste like black pepper, put black pepper in it. If you want something to taste more like itself, put salt in it. So that's what we're doing here. We're just doing a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of salt, and now we are going to go to the oven. I've got my oven preheated to 425 degrees, which is pretty hot, but again, we want that nice, hard caramelization to happen on the outside of it. So we're going to stick it in for about 25 to 25, 30 minutes, 27 minutes, doesn't really matter. The cauliflower will tell us when it's done. But we are going to start, oh God, I always forget something in there. Tonight, it's this thing. So we're going to just stick that on the thing. So we're going to set a timer for about 17 minutes, and then we're going to come back to this and just give it a little bit of a toss, because you don't want everything cooking on one side for too long. Okay, now to the fun part. Why we really came here, right? Why my father-in-law went to Subway to really pick out that vegan tortellini, which I'm sure he's busy at home cooking right now in this moment. So we've got some really good tomatoes. Got a serrated knife. I like using a serrated knife to cut my tomatoes because it just cuts through the skin a little bit better, particularly if you got a little bit of a dull knife. It doesn't cut through the skin as good. And, you know, just like everything else, your tomatoes, your food's got a chi to it. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut our tomatoes right down through the middle. Now, I like cutting my tomatoes through the middle because it sort of keeps everything in place. You certainly could cut your tomatoes like this. You could. Sort of like going to a Nickelback concert. You could. Doesn't mean you should, but you could. But we're going to cut our tomatoes right down the middle. Again, it's proper chi. And Renee, we're going to be here for just a minute. Have any questions come in the queue?
You know, I do not see any questions, but Jill Griffith says hello from Minneapolis.
Hello.
Gail Marie says, we love our co-op. You've done a great job this past year. Thank you, Gail Marie. We appreciate it. Stephanie says, yay, Italians. Kevin Crow says, Mike Coleman, killing it, my man. So happy you're doing this.
Hey, Crow Bass Pro. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Let's see. What else we got? Oh, Andy asks, what temperature is the oven for the cauliflower?
425.
Solid question, Andy. All right.
All right, so we're going to do about, I've got some really great, these are actually 4 different colors of tomatoes here. You can use red tomatoes, you can use yellow tomatoes, you can use orange tomatoes, you can do whatever you want. I really like the combination of red tomatoes and yellow tomatoes, even with orange tomatoes as well. It just gives the sauce a really sort of a vibrant, rich orange color, which is really nice. So that's what we're going to try to accomplish here. And we're going to try to go for about 3 cups of tomatoes, I think is where we want to be. By the way, I've got my pan going on about medium heat. If you can sort of see, it's about a 5 on the knob. It's about medium heat. And when I'm doing this dish in particular, because I really want, you know, you could use a cast iron, you could use like an enamel coated Dutch oven or something like that. You can use whatever you want, but I like these because of the shape of the pan. It's good for doing fancy things like flipping your pasta up. They also heat up really quickly and cool down really quickly, so you can adjust the temperature on them. Whereas if you get a cast iron or raging hot, it's not going to cool down for a long, long time. So I like using my stainless steel pans for dishes like this. So we're getting that going. It's not quite to temp yet, and I'm going to show you a nifty little trick to sort of show you when it is up to temp. Just cut up a few more tomatoes here. Beautiful, wunderbar, as the Germans say. I think it's German. And we're going to bring up the mother of all seasonings, some garlic. Now, if you know me, and most of you probably do, I think, you know that I absolutely love garlic. Garlic is like a lifeblood to an Italian, right? We're practically born with it. It's sort of in our lifeblood. We could probably shower in it, put it in almost everything it is that we possibly use. So we're going to use a healthy amount of garlic in this dish. 1, because it's delicious, but 2, because when you mix it with those tomatoes and that salt, it's really just going to give this dish that thing, that just punch that makes it incredibly delicious. So a couple of big cloves, few big cloves. And when you go to pop off the skins, you know, you sort of see people sometimes just absolutely pound the hell out of the skins. You don't got to do that. Just tap it and just take the skin off. It's much easier to take it off sort of intact than if you absolutely just bludgeon the hell out of these garlic cloves. So just give it a tap. And then you can sort of work the skin off. Just like this. There you go. See, eventually it comes off in one nice piece. And this looks like a mess, and it is, don't get me wrong. But it's a hell of a lot better than just picking through these skins on garlic that you're actually trying to chop. Now, let me show you something else that's good. See that nub right there? Nobody wants that nub. Nobody wants your little nub of garlic. Nobody wants a brown piece of garlic. So just go ahead and trim up your cloves. Trust me, you've got time. It doesn't take that long. So let's see. Let's chop everything up. We'll get rid of those stems right there. And now we're going to try something out really neat. We're going to go over the stove. And remember what I was saying just a couple of minutes ago, tell when your pan is hot enough to cook. Well, we want to get this pan pretty hot, not absolutely raging hot, but pretty hot, which means that when it's called the water test. When you flick water in there, you hear that? That pan is hot enough to go. So we're going to start by going in with our tomatoes. And this is where stuff really starts to get exciting. So we're going to add some oil. Now, when you're using olive oil has a pretty low smoke point to it. So you don't want to get a pan so hot that it burns your oil. You sort of want to find a sweet spot where the oil is just really liquidy like that. See that? It's moving around the pan really nicely. So we're going to let that get up until it just starts to smoke. And when it just starts to smoke, we're going to add these tomatoes. I don't think we're there quite yet. It hardly matters. I say we go in with it and we sort of see what we get. That sounds real nice. Woo! All right, so we're in. Give them a toss. And give them a little bit of seasoning. Those skins are going to start blistering, and as they blister, the juices from inside, the juices from the flesh, and all of that are going to start to liquidate. And that's what's going to create a nice little base for us to add our garlic in there. We don't want to add garlic into a pan that is too hot because the garlic will burn and then it'll sort of lose that effect that we're going for. So we're chopping up our garlic. You don't have to get crazy fine on the mince, but we also don't want like huge chunks or anything. There are professional ways to do this, and I'm sure you've seen actual chefs do this a heck of a lot more graciously than I am. But you know, we're just like a home cook here in Fort Collins, so we're doing the best with what we've got. It also doesn't help that this prop that I'm on is like a total makeshift kitchen prop, and like I'm basically cutting this garlic up around my shoulder blades. It doesn't exactly make this too easy. Okay, so we've got our garlic. It looks like a mott. Trust me, it's not. It's going to end up making this dish totally wonderful here at the end. We're going to get our little scraper. Yeah, roll that beautiful bean footage. All right, how is it looking? Pretty good. All right, we're going to let that go for a little bit longer. Turn that heat up. We're also going to grab ourselves a paper towel. You know, I always say that, you know, when you're cooking, you know, if you really appreciate it, you know that your kitchen is like your workspace, right? And they will tell you that, they say this all the time in professional kitchens, keep your workstation clean, clean up while you cook. It really does have a positive effect in the kitchen when you are cleaning, just to sort of not have stuff all over the place, right? So these tomatoes are looking good. As you can see, they're starting to sort of use some of their juices, which is exactly what we want. And now we're going to go in with all this great garlic. Talk dirty to me, Tom. That's what we were looking for. Give that a little bit of a stir. That is looking good. Right where we want to be. So we're going to let this go for a little bit. We're going to let that cook down. And we're going to come back to our cutting board. And we're going to get started on, actually, while we're doing that, I should probably turn our pasta water up. So I did also preheat my pasta water before we got started tonight. It's something that will allow this dish to sort of come together much quicker if you've got your pasta water going. We're going to get our kale out. We don't need all of this bunch of kale, but we are going to use a decent amount of kale. You can also not use kale. That's also that is a popular move amongst Americans to not use kale. But we are going to use it here. And we're going to cut up a little decent sized bunch. Enough to basically just coat the whole inside of the pan. Because it is going to cook down. It looks like a ton of kale right now. It is going to cook down. So lest you worried about being too healthy, it won't have the same effect at the end as you're looking at right now. So we're going to let this cook for a little bit longer. Look at that. That is where you want it to be. That is gorgeous. Okay. So now we're going to go in with our kale, and we're going to turn the heat down. We're actually kind of ahead of schedule here, so we're going to slow this down a little bit, this whole cooking process, because the cauliflower still has to roast in the oven. So again, you know, cooking at home, it's not a perfect art. You know, obviously, you know, some nights you're going to have dishes come out 15 minutes early. Some nights you're going to have dishes come out 30 minutes late. You know, it's okay. Cooking should be fun. Good food can wait. And as you sort of cook more, you know, you'll get to that point where things just start to make sense. You sort of understand the timing of things. So we're gonna just let this cook down. I'm gonna put a little bit more oil in here just to help that kale a little bit. Not a ton, just a splash. Let me turn the heat up just a splash too. I know I'm playing with my knobs a little bit tonight, but that's all right. Wink, wink. Knob, knob. Okay. That's, I'm just gonna let that go. All right. So we do have a little bit more of a break, and so I want to turn back up front and see, Renee, if any questions have come in since the last time we asked the question.
Well, let's see. Well, George asks, if one has to cut a tomato the wrong way, should they bleach their goatee like it's a Nickelback convert?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question, but one of the funniest things I saw in the pandemic was a Facebook post that said, unaware of worldwide pandemic, Nickelback continues its tour of playing to empty stadiums.
I think I saw that too. That was pretty good.
Yeah, always a goodie.
Yep. Ellen asked, what kind of tomatoes are those? They look like a variety of cherry tomatoes. I think you did touch on this, but if you want to.
Yeah, they're just cherry tomatoes. It's like, you know, there's all sorts of cherry tomatoes that you can get this time of year. It's always good. But one thing we didn't do, which we should have done, is give them a taste. But sometimes you'll get tomatoes that are more acidic. Sometimes you'll get tomatoes that are sweeter. Sort of all depends on the brand and where they were grown. Most of these are probably either grown this time of year in Mexico or in a greenhouse. And so even if they are grown in Mexico, they probably don't have those super long days or those super hot temperatures. So, you know, it's something that you do want to be conscious of when you're cooking like that. You know, when you're using out of season ingredients is, you know, what do they taste like raw? And then what kind of seasoning are you going to have to use to adjust?
So Andy seems to be upset that there's no onions. He says, what? No onions? And Bonnie wants to know if this has been tried with Swiss chard.
It hasn't. First of all, no onions. There are times and places for onions, and there will be onions. Don't get me wrong. Just not in this dish. I mean, you could. Here's the thing. You could add onions into this dish. You could add green beans to this dish. You could add zucchini to this dish. This is just literally a dish I stumbled upon when I had a package of pasta and some tomatoes and some leftover kale. And I said, what in the God's green earth am I going to do on Tuesday? And this is sort of what we came up with. So, you know, as I always say, as my mother actually told me, cook's rule. Whatever you've got in your kitchen, whatever you feel like, you can just do this anytime you want. So, you know, go ahead and use onions, go ahead and use green beans, go ahead and don't use garlic. I don't recommend it, but go ahead and don't use garlic. And then what was, what did Bonnie want to know?
If you had tried the recipe with Swiss chard.
No, but you certainly can.
Mom, what you're referring to, Michael, Mom and I like to call it hostile cooking, because yeah, sometimes you end up and you're like, well, we have this and this and this. What can we do? So.
Yeah, hostile cooking is a good word for what we're sort of doing here. It's just sort of like anything goes, right?
Yep. All right.
Okay.
Nope, you ready?
So we're gonna start, sorry to interrupt you, Renee, but we're gonna start pulling this dish together now. So this sauce is actually looking really good. So this pasta that I got only takes about 2 to 4 minutes to cook. It doesn't take long, but one thing that we want to make sure that we do is while the pasta's cooking, when some of those starch comes out of those little hats, to make sure we take some of that pasta water and add it to this sauce. It'll sort of re-thicken what's in there. It'll rehydrate everything. It'll get all that great caramelized flavor off the bottom of the pan, and it'll create just a wonderful little pan sauce. So before we do that, the cauliflower needs a toss. If we can get a shot of the oven right here, and you can sort of see, I clean my oven for you guys too. That's how much I love you all. So you can start to see, it's starting to get some of those brown pieces around the outside, which is exactly what we want. We're going to stick it back in the oven, I'd say, for like another, just give it a nice little feel, maybe another 10 minutes or so. So the pasta is going to be done before the cauliflower, but we'll come back to it and sort of see what it looks like. Our pasta water is boiling, so now we're going to go in and season it. Another wonderful trick my mother has taught me is that pasta water should be as salty as the sea, right? So when you're here seasoning your pasta water, you know, don't be afraid of the salt. That being said, taste your salt and know what your salt tastes like. Japan alone produces, 3,000 different kinds of salt. So there are going to be salty salts, there are going to be mild salts, there are going to be unbelievably salty salt. I have a pretty salty salt here, so we're going to add a pretty good amount of this into the pot because we want to flavor our pasta. Keep in mind, the pasta is just flour and water. There's no seasoning in the pasta. I mean, on this, there's like a ricotta cheese substitute, but there's no seasoning in that flour and water combination. So you got to season it in order for it to taste good. So we put a good amount of seasoning in there. You also don't want to overdo it because you're going to use that water to enhance your sauce, and there's already salt in this pan. So you don't want to overdo it. So a little bit more salt. And now we're going to go in with our pasta. These are little tortellini hats, like I said, with a ricotta substitute. We're going to add this pasta. And like I said, it's ready in 2 to 4 minutes. So we're going to do 3 minutes on the clock. And with about 1 minute left, we're going to take some of that pasta water out and add it to our sauce. So our little hats are going. They're happy hats. Give this a stir. You always want to keep stirring. You never want to leave food on the bottom of your pan too long. You know, if you do, stuff could get burned. You know, you don't want to burn anything. Even though the cook time of this sauce and another dish that you have in the same pan would be the same. If you just left it there for 20 minutes, it would burn. It wouldn't taste nearly as good. So our hats are in. Our sauce is going. Let's see, we got 2 minutes on the clock. We've got 1 minute until something happens. Do we have any other questions?
We do. The first is, have you seen Searching for Italy with Stanley Tucci on CNN?
I have not. I don't have cable. I do have a TV, but I don't have cable. However, I've heard that it's an unbelievable show. And at some point in time, probably when my parents move up here and next weekend, that they will have cable and I will watch it there. But no, I hear it's unbelievable.
All right. I also just love Stanley Tucci, so I'd probably watch it too. Next question is, what type of kale are you using?
So it's an Italian dish, so we're using the Italian kale. Lacinato, Lusitano, I don't know what it is, but it looks like, you know, like those cypress trees. It looks like the Pax Romana kale, if that makes any sense. It's really dark green. It's got, does it have a great flavor? I don't know. Does kale have flavor? I don't know. I just put it in things and sort of say, well, that tastes green to me. Which is sort of what I did with the kale in this dish. It's there for color. It's also there for health. You can use kale. Again, you can use Swiss chard. You can use the regular winter boar kale. You can use the red crinkly kale. Whatever kind of kale will work. Okay, everybody, here we go. Time to start putting this together. This is where the rubber meets the road, as they say. So we're going to go in. We're going to get about a ladle full of this pasta water, which at this point is pretty nice and starchy. We're going to add that to this dish. We're also going to turn up the heat a little bit. And we're not going to cook this pasta 100% actually in this pot. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to finish cooking it in this sauce. And as you can totally see, the sauce is totally rehydrated. It's that beautiful orange color. Look at that. Isn't that stunning? And as this starts to reduce, all this liquid is going to turn down to a nice sauce that's got a nice drag on it. And it's just going to be unbelievable. Actually, while we're at it, let's give it a taste. See where we're at. That is right there, man. That is incredible. So, pasta coming out, 3 seconds. By the way, if you don't own a spider, these things are just super helpful tools, particularly when you're doing dishes like this. So there we go. In the pot, water off. And now we're just going to cook. We are just going to let this cook. Any residual starch from that pasta will go into the sauce that's already there and help thicken that up. So we're just going to let that go for about a minute, maybe a minute two. There's no set time on it. The point is, what you really want is the sauce to thicken. So whether that takes 2 minutes, whether that takes 4 minutes, whether that takes a minute and a half, That's what you're going for. It's not a set period of time. Look at that. Look at the colors in that dish. Bright orange, yellow, dark green, got the white from the garlic, and that wonderful orange sauce. Now you see that. You see how much more viscous that sauce is than it was when we started. The key to cooking and the key to making good sauces like this is always, when you turn the heat off, the sauce will continue to thicken. So I think we're actually going to turn this off right now. I think it's cooked enough. It certainly, it will, like I said, it will continue to thicken in this pan. See that? Look at that. That is just spot on the money. So we're going to turn this off and we're going to wait until that cauliflower comes out to see what we got. And at this point, we might as well come back, I guess, for our third and final Q&A session before this cauliflower comes out and we finish putting this dish together. So does anybody else have anything? Anything else you want to know?
Question here is, what's in the tortellini?
It's a ricotta cheese substitute. So it's a vegan ricotta.
We have another question that sets you up for an unintentional pitch, but Andy says, nice salt holder, or excuse me, Andy, on behalf of Wendy, says, nice salt holder. Where did you get it?
Marcy Gray. I believe you know her pretty well. I think you could get them at like Bed Bath & Beyond or something. They're pretty standard. It's just sort of, they're really great. I don't know if it's like bamboo or something, but it's really great. They just sort of, you know, open up and close. And they're really great because you can shake them. If your salt's like stuck in there, you can shake them, just make sure they're closed, right?
Yeah, salt everywhere. This just amuses me. Comment from Patrick says, I avoided tortellini for years because I thought it was baby turtles. That's a, yeah.
Okay.
That's a classic, you know, kid thing. You hear it, but you're like, wait, what? And then not until you're an adult do you realize, oh.
You know, let's just say something about helmets here really quickly. Safety third, right? So let's make sure we've got our helmets on when we cook.
Yes, absolutely. Well, otherwise it's pretty quiet on the cooking front.
Pretty quiet out there, huh? All right. Well, we're finished. So let's just do this. Let's check on the old cauliflower. Oh yeah. Now get a close up on this. Now you can see that nice brown starting to get in there on those florets. They're not quite done, but you can see here on the middle how this is starting to turn clear, and you still got a little bit of crunch in the middle. It's exactly what we want to have with this cauliflower. I love my vegetables when there's still a little bit of bite to them. So whether you're doing stuff like broccoli or stuff like asparagus or stuff like cauliflower, you want the outside to be nice and caramelized and the inside to just have that nice crunch that gives you, frankly, a textural contrast. Because unless you're having mashed potatoes or, I don't know, split pea soup or something, you want that textural contrast in your mouth. So we're going to let that cauliflower go for just a minute. But we're going to come back here to this pasta, give it a final toss. And then we are going to start putting this dish together. It's really beautiful. It's really incredible. I recommend, if you've got them, to do white bowls because the sauce will absolutely pop in there. So where did... Sorry, I had to go off camera to get my favorite spoon. So here we go. Now this package of pasta that I use, it looks like a lot of pasta in there, but again, because it's a vegan dish and there's not the animal cheese in it and stuff like that, it's super light. It's so delicious. It comes together, and what time are we at here? 6:41. I don't think we got started until about 6:10. This dish takes 30 minutes, and that's with the cauliflower piece being on the front end too. So there we go. Got some pasta. We're going to kill the heat here in the oven. We're going to bring this cauliflower out. I'm just going to set this to the side for a moment. Lay this down so we don't burn the cutting board that cost half of the mortgage payment. Let's take this cauliflower out here. We're gonna set that up. Now, I think you could even cook this for a little bit longer. It's nice and brown. The reason I'm bringing it out is because I just wanted to show you everything side by side. We'll just take a couple of nice and colored pieces, stick them in this bowl. Again, rustic cooking, guys. You know, no need for a special side plate or whatever. Just throw it right there next to the pasta. Get a fork, grab a spoon, grab whatever you need, and there you have it. Vegan tortellini with blistered tomato sauce and kale and really perfect roasted cauliflower on the side. I want to thank you all for joining us here at the very first episode of the Choice City Cucina. My name is Michael Coleman, and we really appreciate you tuning in. Guys, this has been a really long year. We're coming up on just under a year since this pandemic began. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel stressed. It's okay to be angry. There's a lot of stuff, but give yourself some grace, give other people some grace, take care of each other, and we'll see you the next time. Thanks for tuning in. Woo!